Well, welcome everyone to lecture number 9 of the series by DeCifrisTrends in cryptographic protocols. So it is a pleasure to be here. I'm Elizabeth Quaglia. I'm a reader in the Information Security Group at Royal Holloway, University of London. And today I'm going to talk to you about protocols for peer rating systems. Now, I've been working on these types of protocols for a few years now, and I found them an extremely fascinating area of research because modeling complex cryptographic systems that have multiple and often contrasting security requirements is a quite challenging thing to do, and it raises very interesting research questions. So the plan for today is to introduce to you peer rating systems, what they are, what models they live in, how we can define them, and what security requirements they have. And then we're going to zoom in on a particular aspect that I found very interesting, and that is that of anonymity in PRS. We will define anonymous peer rating systems and show how to achieve them, how to build one. And we will conclude with practical aspects and future work. So let's start with introducing peer rating systems. So intuitively, a peer rating system assigns a user a reputation value, which is based on feedback from other users. And in fact, oftentimes a peer rating system is also known as a reputation system. Now, this reputation value basically represents how trustworthy or what is the merit in a certain user in terms of what service they can provide and what item they're offering. And while it might seem, why are we interested in this kind of system? Well, it turns out that it does play quite a fundamental role in our online activities. Like if you think when you go online and you have to choose which restaurant to book a table in, or what to buy online, you often rely on ratings from other users to make your decision. So having such a system and providing a secure solution to this problem is actually a very interesting and relevant thing to do. And cryptographers have started to become interested in this area around less than 10 years ago, when they started formalizing what reputation systems or peer rating systems should provide and how they work. So let's first see what type of models there are out there for reputation systems. There are 2 models that have been considered so far. The first one is centralized PRS. So in a centralized PRS, as the name suggests, there is a central reputation server whose role is to enroll users and form reputation values on these users. And in this talk, we're going to focus on, we're going to consider these type of reputation, peer reputation systems, peer rating systems, mostly because a lot of the literature focuses as well on this, and the reason is that service providers such as Airbnb, Uber, and Amazon are specifically of this type. But it's also important to know that there exists another model in this Web3 kind of era. It is obvious that research will be looking at how to provide the same functionality, but in a distributed setting. So this decentralized peer rating systems are systems that have no reputation server, central reputation server, but instead use local reputation values. So reputation values are created by users on other users. And this means that a user ultimately does not have a unique reputation value, but many other users hold their own reputation value for them. But as I said, in this talk, and for the purpose of this lecture, we're going to focus on centralized PRS. So how do we define a PRS? So there are many models out there. There are many definitions out there, very similar to each other, but but with little nuances that differ each other. So we focused on one of the most recent that introduces clearly what entities are involved in a PRS. So you have a set of users UI and the central reputation server, and then goes on defining what algorithms constitute a peer rating system. Now, I don't expect anyone to remember all of these algorithms or to know exactly precisely their inputs and outputs. I've just given you an idea of when you start modeling a more advanced or complex cryptographic protocol, then you have to start breaking down each aspect of the functionality, and this is what defining these algorithms help you to do. So I'll go through them just to give you an idea. Obviously, there's a setup algorithm, which is run by the central server to set up the system's parameters and keys. There's a very important allocate reputation algorithm, which is what is run by the central server, ultimately to produce a token that would allow users to prove what their reputation is. And then the other algorithms are kind of divided in algorithms that deal with the service or the item that users want to provide to the system, and the feedback that is given by other users on this service or item. So with post item, a user can advertise what item they have to offer together with their reputation, and with check item, users can check that this item is valid. And with send FB, users can give feedback on an item. The central server can verify that feedback is valid. It can also check that there is no feedback by the same user on the same item. And finally, CS can receive the feedback on an item to then collate it together and help create the updated reputation on the user. So I completely understand this can be a little overwhelming to see all of these algorithms, and do we really need all of this? Well, maybe it's a little more intuitive if we run through an example and where these algorithms may pop up in a real use of a peer rating system. So suppose you're using a PRS for a carpooling app. Whenever a driver wants to update their reputation, what they should do is request that the central server run the allocate reputation algorithm so that they can receive a token for their reputation. And why would they want to do this? Because this reputation is displayed alongside the time it was allocated. So you don't want your reputation to be 5 years old, but you want it to be as recent as it can be. So the driver does this, and when they want to give a ride, they use this token to post the item where the item is the ride that they can offer. And this can be verified by the passengers with check item. This ride is selected by a passenger who needs it. And once the ride is over, the passenger can pay. Let's assume using some anonymous payment system. And after the ride, they can provide feedback on the item and using send feedback as the algorithm. And the central server can receive feedback to update all their list of feedback and reputation for each user if the feedback is valid. So this is, I know I've only touched 5 out of the 8 algorithms that I've mentioned, but this is to give you an idea of how breaking down the functionality of this of these protocols is useful to see each step of the way what is happening. And as you certainly have learned through the course of this series of lectures, is that the reason why we formalize all of this is that we can also formalize security requirements for these systems in order to reason more rigorously about the security guarantees that our constructions deliver. So it is only natural that there's formal security definitions for PRS. This is quite a complex task, and there's lots of literature on it. I'm not going to define formally all of the security properties here. I just want to give you an idea of what we're aiming for in terms of security requirements. So what we want for sure for a PRS is to be correct. So essentially, if we run all of the algorithms that I mentioned correctly, then everything is as it should, which is great. And then we want to offer some privacy guarantees. By privacy, it's quite an umbrella term here. I could want to be sure that users are untraceable or unlinkable, or I may be referring to the privacy of feedback. And I also want some verifiability guarantees. So I would like to be ensured that only authorized users are joining the system and their reputations are valid. So these more general class of security requirements are actually very consistent with what other complex cryptographic protocols requires. Like in e-voting and e-auctions, we also have privacy requirements and verifiability requirements. But more specific to the PRS context is also considering security with respect to a variety of attacks that can be mounted to misuse the system. There's an interesting paper that I reference here, if you want to read more, that details all of these attacks. And here I just mention a few. You may be familiar with Sybil attacks, which are common in systems where there's the possibility of joining use under multiple identities. And if you do that, you can provide unfair feedback, because the same user can use multiple different identities to provide the feedback that they want. There's an unfair ratings attack, where a user colludes to give unfair ratings. And a special type of this attack is a self-promoting attack. So you misuse the system to boost your own reputation. There's attacks known as whitewashing attacks, where you leave and rejoin to abuse the system and shed a bad reputation. Or an on-off attack, where you behave honestly up to a certain point, where you then behave dishonestly. And there's also ways to exploit the interval before the latest round of ratings takes effect to behave badly. So this is just a warning that not only you have to define things very formally, you have to be aware that other types of attacks specific to this scenario exist, and you need to be aware of this when designing a PRS scheme. But one specific security requirement I want to focus on today is that of anonymity. So anonymity has received a great amount of attention in this area. And to be fair, it has received a great amount of attention in many areas of cryptography. And that is because providing anonymity allows users to behave more freely. They behave without fear of repercussion, of coercion, or intimidation. So it's a great thing if you can provide anonymity to a cryptographic protocol. And especially in the context of ratings, rating anonymously means you're free to rate as you please, without being forced to do anything you don't want to do. And solutions exist in providing anonymity in a variety of ways. So providing anonymity to all users except the reputation server, or using multiple servers, or in the presence of a corrupted server. And that is great, which means there's a lot of interest in this area. But one thing that happens when you introduce the property of anonymity is that while you're protecting the freedom of expression of the majority of users, you're also creating an opportunity for malicious users to misbehave. And here, what does misbehave mean? It means you could badmouth competitors, or you can inflate your own reputation. And so there needs to be a way where where we can mitigate this side effect in a way of anonymity. And as in other cryptographic protocols that have anonymity, cryptographers have chosen an approach to deal with this by using the notion of traceability. So the key idea is that if you can trace users when they misbehave, then you can revoke them. And indeed, that is a successful way of dealing with the side effects of anonymity. And I would say it's also quite a suitable way, especially in the context of centralized system, because you're already trusting the central server to do something. So you could give them the responsibility to also trace and revoke malicious users. But there is another possible approach to dealing with the the other side of anonymity, which is instead of punishing bad behavior, you incentivize good behavior by rewarding users. Now, what we want to do in this context is allowing anonymous peer rating by rewarding the honest ratings in a context where users are peers and, as I said, anonymously rate each other. So this is the context we would like to work in and the approach we would like to use. And we believe this works well in contexts where users are raters that have something to contribute to the system in terms of services and items in a way. So you're participating in the system so that if you give accurate feedback, accurate ratings, and you get a reward, then that will increase your own reputation. So examples of this can be peer-to-peer file sharing scenarios or collaborative knowledge production and sharing, where this rewarding approach works quite well. Okay, so what are we going to focus on for the rest of the talk is discussing a solution to anonymous peer rating system which uses rewards. So that is what we want to do. How is it going to work? So what's the context in which we're working? So we'll look at a system that operates in rounds, and each user rates each other by providing feedback to the reputation server. And accurate ratings are incentivized and weighed by reputation. Now, I mentioned at the beginning, I found this area of research extremely interesting because as soon as you try to address something, then you have to counterbalance it in some other way. So we're using rewards to counterbalance anonymity, but then other challenges emerge with this approach, because now if we want to weigh feedback by reputation, then that could de-anonymize the user. And if we want to incentivize by giving rewards to users, also that can de-anonymize the user. So introducing rewards hinders a little bit the anonymity part in a way. So we have to consider this and consider the challenges in this. And these challenges can indeed be overcome. So how are we going to do this? Well, we have to define again what are the entities in this new setting, the anonymity setting. We have always a set of users that interact with each other in rounds. We have a reputation holder. And we have a newly introduced entity, which is the rewarder. And the rewarder is going to be the entity who chooses what ratings are going to be rewarded and will not be able to see which users have their reputation increase as a result of being rewarded. Now, for the purpose of this talk, we're going to think of these two entities being separate, but in our paper, we showed that these entities can collude and indeed could coincide. So, but to keep things clear, let's see these as two different entities. So how do they interact? How do these entities interact? As I mentioned, this system operates in rounds. At the end of each round, users rate each other's performance. And so what they do is they decide on a feedback, and they send this anonymously along with their own reputation to the rewarder. Then the rewarder collects all these ratings and discards multiple ratings on the same subject, and decides to reward accurate feedback by outputting a set of incentives. Now, what is an accurate feedback? You can decide for yourself how to define an accurate feedback. We think we define accurate feedback as feedback which is close to the reputation of the user that you're giving feedback on. But any other metric would do. And these set of incentives are broadcast, are output, and a user then goes to the reputation holder claiming that they're responsible for a number of these incentives. And once the reputation holder has all of this information, they can compute the final reputation, which is based precisely on the weight feedback from other users, the number of incentives they have successfully claimed, and their previous reputation. So this is an overview of how an APRS works. Of course, as we mentioned at the beginning of this lecture, it is important to formally define everything. And indeed, we do. An APRS formally consists of 11 algorithms and one interactive protocol, which I'm not going to detail here. I think seeing the 8th one from before is enough. But I do want to go a little bit more in detail through the phases of the system, so that you understand where these algorithms fit in and how concretely an anonymous peer rating system works. So there's a setup and key generation phase where the reputation holder and rewarder generate their own key pairs. There's a join phase. That's where the interactive protocol is run between the users and the reputation holder. And the output of this is that the users will get to hold private keys with which they can generate ratings and collect rewards. And then there's the ratings phase. So this rating happen at round L. As we said, the feedback is provided alongside the reputation to the rewarder, and the rewarder forms updated reputations on the users whose feedback has been provided on, and this is sent to the reputation holder. A key phase, obviously, because we're centering all of this on a reward mechanism, is how do you incentivize accurate feedback? So this is a phase where the rewarder rewards accurate feedback by outputting incentives, which are collected by the users, and a final phase where a user is given a reputation for the next round, thanks to the information that has been collected so far. So if we want to visualize this a little bit more, here's a focus on the two key, I would say, phases of this system, which is the rated and the incentivizing feedback, accurate feedback. So if you look on the left-hand side, users start with rating each other and sending the ratings to the rewarder. The rewarder calculates a reputation based on this feedback and sends it over to the reputation holder. And on the right-hand side, the rewarder broadcasts the incentives for accurate ratings, which are collected by users and sent to the reputation holder, which forms an updated reputation for each of the users using this information. So we've defined the context, the entities, the interaction, and the phases of an anonymous peer rating system. What are the security requirements that we need? So there's a bunch of them, which I'll briefly describe. I'm not going to formally define. But as we introduce the new aspect of anonymity and the new approach of rewards, this means that appropriate security definitions need to be added to the existing ones. So of course we need correctness for this system. Key property is anonymity. So we model anonymity of ratings under full corruption. So this is the strongest anonymity where both entities are corrupted. But we could also have anonymity of ratings under a corrupt reputation holder. Then we need to model traceability, which ensures that multiple ratings cannot be given on the same user per round. Non-frameability, which ensures users cannot be impersonated when given ratings or claiming incentives. Unforgeability of reputation, which ensures a user cannot lie about their reputation. And the new fair rewards security property, which ensures that users can only successfully claim for the number of incentives they were awarded. So this is a bunch of security properties that we need. Can we possibly achieve all of this? And the answer is yes. We built such a scheme. And to build and to achieve this, we simply need three basic ingredients, three building blocks. One is a very simple one, a standard PKE scheme with its standard algorithms, which look very few now in comparison to what we've seen so far, and satisfying in CCA security. And then we need other two ingredients. I'm not sure everybody's familiar with them, so I'm just going to describe them a little bit. We need a linkable ring signature scheme and a direct anonymous attestation scheme, which are very similar primitives, actually. So linkable ring signatures are a variant of ring signatures. And ring signatures are a type of digital signature schemes that allow users to sign on behalf of a set of users without revealing their identity within the set. So you immediately see where the anonymity aspect comes from in here. So you're signing, you're one of the members of the set, but no one can tell which one you are. And in ring signatures, there's no central entity involved. Users can generate their own signing and verification keys. In linkable ring signatures, you have the added feature that if a signer signs twice, then this can be publicly linked. Direct anonymous attestation is quite a complex cryptographic protocol, to be honest, which is actually deployed in the real world. And it's a very similar primitive to ring signatures in the sense that in terms of functionality, it allows users to sign on behalf of a group whilst remaining anonymous within the group. But the difference between this and ring signatures is that here there is a central authority involved, and this does have an impact on our construction for a peer rating system. Okay, so we have these three building blocks, let's say, and in this paper, which I co-author with Lydia Gams and Xiaoling Ji and Giulia Traverso, published in SCN 2020, we provide a construction for anonymous peer rating system based on these three building blocks. So what is the idea? I'm just going to give you the intuition of how the construction works. So the idea is that we use the DA scheme to sign feedback, and we actually slightly modify the DA scheme so that when signing, we can incorporate our reputation, which means that the feedback can be weighed. Now, the linkable ring signatures are used to allow to incentivize users who rate accurately. And how does this work? So every time we rate, we generate a fresh verification key, and we encrypt that under the rewarder's public key, and we attach this to the rating. And when the rewarder sees an accurate rating, it decrypts the attached verification key, publishes a bunch of these verification keys, and then the user who authored that accurate rating can then sign a linkable ring signature with the corresponding secret key and claim their incentive to the reputation holder. So that's how the construction works. And does it satisfy all of our security notions? Yes, it does. Thanks to, well, of course, assuming that the underlying building blocks are secure and satisfy all of their nice properties, then we do achieve anonymity of ratings under full corruption, traceability, non-frameability, fair rewards. And we can also prevent a bunch of the attacks that I earlier discussed. For instance, Sybil attacks are prevented by having, as I mentioned, the DEA generate key pairs. So there is a central authority involved there. So the registration process is robust and can help prevent Sybil attacks. And ways to prevent other attacks also are discussed in the paper. So great. So we can actually, with these three ingredients, as long as they achieve their own security properties, we can achieve all these nice security properties of an anonymous peer rating system. What about instantiation and efficiency? So the construction that I described intuitively a few slides ago is a generic design. So actually, if you have any of these ingredients, you can plug them in and achieve a secure APRS. We show that we actually can instantiate with existing schemes just off the shelf under standard assumptions. And this brings to a construction where an incentive claim, as we said, that's essentially a linkable ring signatures. So its efficiency is comparable to current state of the art, which is a little bit large. Ratings are reasonably smaller. So it's an okay construction, but obviously there's space for improvement. And indeed, that's great because it means there's lots of work that can be done, but it does mean that it does show a sort of proof of concept in a way, because it brings the state of the art in achieving PRS to a situation where we can allow accurate ratings to be incentivized, feedback to be weighed by reputation, and multiple feedback on the same subject to be detected, whilst at the same time ensuring that ratings remain anonymous. So this is a good place to be in terms of security guarantees. And obviously, what we can do in terms of thinking forward and future direction of the direction for future work is think of different primitives that could be used to instantiate the system in a more efficient way or relying on different assumptions. And another area that's very interesting to explore is to study APRS through a game theoretic approach, because we're using incentives and strategies. So these play obviously a fundamental role in game theory. So why not study this through this lens? And then this has already been done. So in terms of PRS, so standard peer rating systems have been studied in the game theoretic world. It's just the anonymous part that still needs to be explored. So that's definitely something to go and explore in that direction. So this actually concludes my my lecture. Hopefully, I've given you an idea of how approaching and studying complex cryptographic protocols is quite nuanced and intricate, but also rewarding, excuse the pun. And yeah, so I think I'll stop sharing for now and happy to take questions.